Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Tonight on the Evan-Miller Report, France seizes passports of 6 Syrian-bound citizens. We have the latest on that story. Families of 3 UK schoolgirls are begging the girls to come back home. In Russia, they're accusing the U.S. of bringing chaos to the Middle East. Back here at home, a Marine who vanished in Iraq is found guilty of desertion. This as the NSA chief declines comment on spyware reports and says the program is lawful. And the countdown has begun for the Homeland Security bill. Will it pass or will it not pass? We have all those stories and more. Plus, Corey Evans.
Thank you as always, Jay. A NorCal man breaks into a Kmart and threatens suicide. Uh-oh, this guy's all wet. Immigration is migrating into our continuing battle against global socialism. Why am I not surprised? Target is discounting the free shipping requirements as Greece goes up for its debt negotiations. Lawsuits across America goes more digital than usual. And American Sniper gets an ultra-liberal snub in entertainment. All that and more is coming up right now in the Evan-Miller Report, your conservative news source.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan-Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan-Miller Report on SHR Media and Public Press Radio. Here now, Jason Miller.
And a very good evening on this Monday, February the 23rd, 2015. I'm Jason Miller, along with Corey Evan this evening. And before we get to the news tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have an announcement to make regarding the future of this program on some of our affiliated networks. We were notified earlier over the weekend by Dan Butcher of Pundit Press Radio that they no longer want to carry the Evan-Miller Report as they are moving Pundit Press Radio in a different direction at this time. We've been with Pundit Press Radio for a good portion of a year and a half, and we have enjoyed that relationship with them. And we hold no ill will against Pundit Press whatsoever. We respect their decision to take their radio operations in a different direction, and I have spoken to Dan on this on many occasions off air, and he has stated what he wants to do with his future plans with Pundit Press Radio as he brings new programs over to the network on Pundit Press Radio. So we will no longer be offering broadcasting the Evan-Miller Report via Pundit Press Radio, and will only be available exclusively now on SHR Media, Spreaker, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. So for those of you looking for the podcast in the future, please go to those respected sites. And of course, we'll have more on this later on, and we will put up a Facebook post with all the links over to the respectable websites where you can listen to podcasts of this program if you are not able to listen to live as you are this evening via shrmedia.com. So once again, we'd like to thank the folks over at Pundit Press for their long-time relationship with us, and we wish them well in their future endeavors.
Just remember, Jay, one door closes, another door opens.
Absolutely right, Corey Evan. Absolutely right. Couldn't say better myself there. So the best of luck once again to Pundit Press Radio and the future of their operation as they take their steps in new directions in their future. Now, folks, it's time to get on to the news this evening. Enough of that news. We'll get on to the real news tonight. French authorities have, for the first time, confiscated the passports of 6 nationalists who were allegedly planning to travel to Syria to join jihadists. Interior Minister Bernard Savas said the intelligence services believe the men want to join the ISIS militant group. The measure is part of a new counterterrorism law adopted last November. Meanwhile, France has deployed an aircraft carrier off Bahrain to be used against Islamic State militants. Planes from the Charles de Gaulle carrier will be used against ISIS positions in Iraq, a spokesperson for Defense Minister John Yves Le Drian said. The first Rafale fighter jet took off today from the carrier as it sailed about 120 miles off the northern coast of Bahrain. Correspondents say the deployment of the warship will have the time it takes for military aircraft which normally fly from the United Arab Emirates to reach Iraq. France began Operation Camille in support of the U.S.-led coalition against ISIS in September. Mr. Chauvin said authorities had acted against the 6 men after their departure to Syria appeared to be imminent. Their passports and identity cards have been confiscated for 6 months, after which the order can be renewed. They have the right to appeal against the move in court. According to French media, some of the men were reported to the authorities by relatives using a newly established telephone line, while others were identified by police investigations. French officials quoted by ITN and the Reuters news agency estimate that about 400 French citizens are in Syria. 180 have returned to France, 200 want to go, and 200 are somewhere in Europe trying to get there. France has been on alert, of course, after 17 people were killed earlier this year in the attacks on the senatorial Charlie Hebdo magazine and a Jewish supermarket in January. Staying in Europe and going over to the UK, Turkish police have searched Monday for 3 missing British schoolgirls believed to be headed to Syria to join the Islamic State extremist group, as their frightened families issued urgent pleas begging the girls to return home. The girls, said to be straight-A students from the same East London school, disappeared last Tuesday without leaving any messages. Authorities said they boarded a Turkish Airlines plane to Istanbul. The relatives of Shamin Begim and Amir Abbasi, both 15, and Kadeh Sodona, 16, broke down in tears as they spoke of their fears in televised interviews via British television. The saying, quote, "We miss you, we cannot stop crying," said Abis Hussein, Amir's father, clutching onto a teddy bear Amir gave to her mother on Mother's Day. "Please think twice, don't go to Syria." The case has captured wide attention in the UK, where authorities say at least 500 people have left for Syria to join extremists and fear they pose a terrorism threat when they return. Authorities have been criticized after it emerged that before the girls disappeared, Begum had an online contact with a 4th girl, Asqa Mahmoud, who left for Syria back in 2013 to become a jihad bride. Ihar Anwar, the lawyer from Mahmoud's family, argued that the police failed to engage with communities, saying, quote, "I cannot see why this isn't considered a child protection issue. These young girls have been groomed online. They have been trafficked. The girls took advantage of lax regulations in the UK governing international air travel for unaccompanied minors, which makes it relatively easy for teens to travel without parental permission. Many major airlines place no restrictions on children over the age of 12. The Turkish Airlines website states with written permission is needed for children between 7 and 12 to travel unaccompanied, but does not mention rules for children over the age of 12. European Union officials have discussed tightening these rules in recent months. Over to Russia now, where their foreign minister Sergei Lavrov has accused the United States today of plunging the Middle East into chaos and fueling the rise of extremists because of its drive to dominate the world. Lavrov leveled the fierce criticism of Washington's politics at a special UN Security Council debate on maintaining international peace and security. The foreign minister cited the U.S.-led airstrikes in Syria, the 2003 invasion of Iraq, and the 2011 military intervention in Libya as examples of violations of the fundamental principles of the United Nations, or as we at the Evan-Miller Report call the principles of United BS.
Yes, you hit it right on the nail.
Continuing on the story, all of this is a result of attempts to dominate global affairs, to rule over all everywhere, to use military force unilaterally to push one's interests, Lavrov told the 15-member council. These have plunged the Middle East and North Africa into instability and chaos, and to a large extent have created a breeding ground in which extremists thrive. Russia and the United States have been at loggerheads over the war in Syria, with Moscow supporting President Bashar al-Assad and opposing U.S. airstrikes against Islamic State targets. Over to Israel now, where their Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman Monday hailed a U.S. jury's order for Palestinian authorities to pay up to $218 million in damages to American victims of the 2002 to 2004 attacks in Israel as a moral victory. Lieberman said, quote, "This decision constitutes, above all, moral victory for the state of Israel and for victims of terrorism. It confirms the opinion of those who know what happened in the early 2000s, but which many in the world refuse to recognize because the hypocrisy, known vested interest, or anti-Semitism. Terrorism is an integral part of the very structure of the Palestinian Authority." End of quote. A jury in New York ordered Palestinian authorities to pay the damages to American victims of 6 separate attacks in Israel, as we stated, between 2002 and 2004. It found the Palestinian Authority and Palestinian Liberation Organization liable on 25 separate charges and awarded the damages after one day of deliberations. 11 plaintiffs' families filed suit in federal court against both the PA and the PLO following the attacks that killed 33 people and injured more than 390. The plaintiffs have pressed for the PA and the PLO to be held accountable for supporting the attacks by members of the Islamic movement Hamas and the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade linked to the mainstream Fatah faction. But lawyers for the Palestinian Authority said it should not be held responsible for crazy and terrible attacks committed in Israel, insisting the assailants had acted independently. AFP News contributed to parts of this report. Over to Africa now, where Kenya's High Court has thrown out key aspects of a tough new anti-terrorism law after a legal challenge by the opposition. 8 clauses were annulled, including those which curbed media freedom and capped the number of refugees and asylum seekers to 150,000. The government said the law was needed to counter the growing threat posed by militant Islamists. The opposition warned that it violated civil liberties. According to the BBC's Murma Alda in the capital, Nairobi, she says the opposition Coalition for Reform and Democracy Party applauded the ruling, saying it had saved Kenya from becoming a police state. The government said it would consider lodging an appeal. Their reporter also says the court has ruled in the government's favor on some controversial issues. These included giving Kenya's intelligence agencies the power to carry out covert operations to prevent attacks and allowing police to detain terror suspects beyond 24 hours provided they were first brought to court. The law was passed during a chaotic parliamentary session back in December of last year following the killing of 64 people in 2 attacks in northwestern Kenya by the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab group. Prosecutors in Colombia say they have dismantled a gang which allegedly kidnapped people and then sold them on the Marxist ELN rebel group. 12 people have been arrested on suspicion of belonging to the gang, which operated in northwestern province of Chino. Among them is a local councilor, prosecutors said. The ELN is Colombia's second largest rebel group and partially funds itself through extortion and ransom payments. The gang is believed to have been behind at least 6 kidnappings, prosecutor Luis Gonzalez Leon said. All 6 victims were handed over by the gang to the ELN rebel group, he added. Among them was the mayor of the town of Altabedo, Freddy Paltos Ramirez, who was seized in December and is still believed to be in the hands of the ELN. The ELN rebels are thought to have paid the gang up to $125,000 per kidnapped victim, according to the prosecutor in Colombia. Over to Australia now, where their Prime Minister Tony Abbott has announced a push to toughen citizenship laws and tackle those inciting hatred in an attempt to target domestic extremists. He said citizenship for dual nationals involved in terrorism could be suspended or even revoked. People born in Australia could also lose some privileges if they broke anti-terror laws, he added. Officials have warned that the country faces a growing security threat from radical Islamists. Dozens of Australian nationals are thought to be fighting for ISIS militants in Iraq and Syria. experts are worried about the effect of returnees and on those who support them on domestic security. It has been the case that people who fight against Australia forfeit their citizenship, Mr. Abbott said in a speech at the Federal Police Headquarters in the capital, Canberra. He continued, quote, "So Australians who take up arms with terrorist groups, especially while Australian military personnel are engaged in Afghanistan and Iraq, have sided against our country and should be treated accordingly," he said. For dual nationals, that meant revoking or suspending citizenship, he said, and the government was also looking at the measures targeting Australian nationals involved in terrorism. Australian authorities have canceled 100 passports belonging to fighters in Syria and Iraq since 2010, but this does not deprive them of the right to return to Australia if they are citizens. Mr. Abbott said the new proposals will also target hate preachers referring to groups that incite religious or racial hatred, organizations and individuals blatantly spreading discord and division, such as his attorney should not do so with impunity, he said. In his speech, the Prime Minister also said that a new security czar would be appointed soon. Now, Corey, we don't normally open the conversation up when it comes to international issues, but we here at the Evan-Miller Report, especially here in the United States for our U.S. audience, have had the experience of having czars, and they have come up to no good. So Australia bringing in a security czar, not exactly, I think, a good idea.
No, not at all. Why would you want anything remotely associated with the czars? I mean, when you think czar, you should think the Russian czars and multiply it by 1,000. That's about what you get today.
Absolutely right. All right, folks, I'll be back in a couple minutes with some of the other news of the day, including U.S. Marine who vanished in Iraq has been found guilty of desertion. But first, we send it over to Corey Evan. He has some of the day's other national headlines that are making news today. Corey, take it away.
Will do, Jay. We've got some really good ones, starting with Scott Walker. Did he just stumble on his way to the 2016 Republican presidential primary? According to the Christian Science Monitor, yes, according to the Christian Science Monitor, the Wisconsin governor and GOP presidential candidate found himself in the hot seat after comments Rudy Giuliani made last Wednesday in which the former New York mayor said he doesn't believe Obama loves America. When asked by the media about the former mayor's comments, not only did Walker refuse to affirm the president's love for his country, he also punted when asked if he believed Obama is a Christian. "I don't know," the Republican governor replied when asked about the president's faith in an interview with the Washington Post. Quote, "I've never actually talked about it, or I haven't read about that. I've never asked him that," Walker said. A Walker spokesperson later called the Washington Post to say, quote, "Of course the governor thinks the president is a Christian," but his initial response reflected a disapproval of gotcha questions that distract from his record. Was this Walker's oops moment? While some conservatives say that Walker was simply refusing to engage in gotcha questions from a press fishing for controversy, others in the Republican Party appeared concerned that in a field in which handling tough questions with aplomb is part of the job description, Walker flat out failed. We have yet to determine that here at the Evan-Miller Report, but Walker has branded himself as a man with big, bold ideas and the courage to act on it. When have we heard that before, Jay?
One too many times, I assure you.
Exactly. Moving on, the Justice Department today asked a Texas judge to set aside his week-old ruling that froze Obama administration programs designed to shield some immigrants from deportation and allow them to work. The department also notified the judge that it intends to appeal last week's ruling. It asserted that if there was not response by the close of business Wednesday, it may have to appeal to protect their interests. Last week's ruling by U.S. District Judge Andrew Hanen put on hold programs authorized by President Obama. Texas, joined by 25 other states, had challenged Obama's authority to use executive action to provide protection from deportation to millions of immigrants. Some came as children, and some have had children who are citizens or legal residents, which complicates the situation here at home and complicates a lot of moral questions as well, like some kids who have ended up here and are trying to maintain ties with their families here in the U.S. and in Mexico. That does make it complicated for them and makes me wonder how they can accomplish that without getting themselves into even more hot water. Just a question that came to mind, Jay.
Yes, absolutely. And I have the D.C. part of this story tonight. The Republican-led Senate voted today for the fourth time in as many weeks to begin debate on a stalled funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security, which faces a Friday deadline. But like the three votes before it, Senate Democrats have blocked taking up the bill that passed the GOP-controlled House because it contains what they consider poison pills, provisions that would block, well, Corey Evan has reported, on his executive orders on immigration. On a measure that needed 60 votes to succeed, it failed with 47 voting in support to 46 against. With only 4 days before the Department of Homeland Security loses its funding, large parts of the agency will be shuttered or employees will be forced to work without pay. The two sides are at a stalemate, and there are no known serious negotiations involving congressional leaders or the White House to bridge differences. Senate Majority Leader and BS artist Mitch McConnell said, quote, "It's time to allow this Homeland Security funding legislation to come to the floor. Democrats say they want to amend DHS funding legislation, but then they keep voting to block their own amendments. It doesn't make any sense." Is he trying to quote Judge Judy? I certainly don't know, but back to the story. Meanwhile, Senate Democratic leader and BS artist Harry Reid pointed to a handful of Republicans who have said Congress should pass a funding bill that is clean of the immigration provisions, saying, quote, "I don't understand why my Republican friends are trying to do. Their plan is destined to fail." Meanwhile, House Homeland Security Committee Chairman and BS artist Michael McCall from Texas said in an interview with CNN, "We passed a bill that fully funds the department. We'll probably see something from the Senate this week, and we'll have to make some tough choices." While it wasn't clear what McCall expects back from the Senate, since the chamber can't even take up the bill right now, the chairman warned that with the recent surge in deadly terrorist attacks abroad, it would be irresponsible for lawmakers and policymakers to shut down his national security agency at this grave time. So, Corey, it looks like the debate continues, and don't know if it's going to be similar to what we had with that government shutdown a couple years back, but let's put it this way. Usually when it comes to these things, it's really down to the very last minute that they decide to come up with a deal.
Forgive me, but it usually turns into a Mexican standoff. You know, where they're all holding whatever objects they can find in 60 seconds or less, and they're poised and ready to strike. That's what always comes into my head.
I think he's referring to the scene in Anchorman where they're all the news anchors of the different stations are fighting, and then when the police come, you hear the Spanish station scream, "Polición!"
Yes, and of course, loud noises.
Speak of loud noises, back to you for more of the loud national news.
Yeah, and one guy in Northern California was making a really loud noise. This from the AP. NorCal authorities on Saturday found a suicidal man who they say forced his way into a closed Kmart store and briefly took a janitor hostage before fleeing. Police say the incident began shortly after 6:30 a.m. Saturday when a man wearing a black boxer underpants and a t-shirt banged on the doors of the closed department store in Eureka, a coastal community about 300 miles north of San Fran, near the Oregon border. The man was wet and muddy and told the janitor that he played football at nearby college of the Redwoods Community College. The man is described as 18 years old, 6'4", weighing about 280. So he's probably a bit stout. After the janitor opened the door, the man grabbed the janitor and said, and forced him into the store's bathroom. Yeah. It was cutting out on me as I was saying that the man picked up a pair of scissors and ordered the janitor to strip and forced him into the store's bathroom.
Ew,
the man then... You think? The man then sat down... He then sat down in a chair outside the bathroom.
Marijuana.
Probably. He sat down in a chair outside the bathroom with the scissors. The janitor said he could hear the man cry out in pain and peeked through the cracked door to see the man cutting himself on both arms with the scissors. The man then fled the store. Yeah, it just gets disgusting from there. Yes. And at about the same time, police received a phone call from a Eureka woman who said her son was suicidal and missing from home. Police didn't say exactly where they found the man or release his name. He's undergoing medical care, thankfully. And the 19-year-old accused of murder after a reported road rage incident in Las Vegas made his first court appearance today, after his lawyer said in an exclusive interview that his client was acting in self-defense and that no road rage occurred. Eric Naus Jr. is charged with murder, attempted murder, and illegal discharge of a gun in the death of Tammy Myers. He was arrested Thursday. Naus did not speak after an officer ushered him into a Las Vegas courtroom this morning. He was shackled at the waist and wearing a blue prison uniform with tattoos showing on his chest, beneath a V-neck collar, and on his arms. The court scheduled a preliminary hearing for March 10th at 9 a.m. after a lawyer for Naus told Judge Conrad Hafen he needed time to subpoena additional evidence in the case, including video recordings. But no matter what they find in this case, I still think this is yet another example of a young man making legal gun owners look bad. It really is. Of course, there was no discussion of bail or plea, so we will have to keep an eye on that and see if anything relevant comes up. Right, we'll go ahead and take a break, but when we come back, getting back to work at the West Coast port, they get caught up quick or slow? And are you buying just $25 worth of stuff online? Target will ship it to you for free now. And in lawsuits across America, we go into the digital realm to help you physical lot figure out what's up. All that and more, plus Jason's got what's coming up in DC News.
Thank you very much, Corey. Coming up in the DC News, the NSA chief declines comment on spyware reports saying the program is lawful. U.S. Justice Department asked Obama embraces more of his presidential power in saying that he is going to pass something that is more powerful than a veto. We have that story. And a lawmaker with a lavish decor build private planes and concerts? Yes, it's a politician. It's another BS artist in our continuing battle against global socialism. And the Supreme Court seems split over a spouse's right to protest a visa denial. We'll have all those stories and more when we come back on the Evan-Miller Report, your conservative news source. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Evan-Miller Report on SHR Media and 100 Press Radio.
Radio.
News. News. Radio. News. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Here's radio.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, our discoveries have helped drive the childhood cancer survival rate from 20% to 80%. And we share our research all across America.
I'm 80% sure I'll spoil my kids. I'm 80% sure I'll break boys' hearts. I'm 80% sure we're chick magnets.
80%? I'll take those odds.
Give thanks for the healthy kids in your life and give to those who are not. Go to stjude.org or shop wherever you see the St. Jude logo.
Let's get back to the Evan-Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
Thank you for tuning in again to the Evan-Miller Report. We are back. I'm Corey Evan. Jason Miller will be back with us in just a few short moments with the DC News. But first, freezing rain coated parts of Texas with ice on Monday, according to the AP, leading to hundreds of canceled flights and a delay in the American Sniper murder trial. Elsewhere, Arctic air and snow in parts of New England and New York made for a cold, dangerous commute. More broadly, temperatures are expected to be 25 to 30 degrees below normal across much of the country, according to Weather Service forecaster Jim Hayes. Up to an inch of ice was possible in parts of North Texas. Fort Worth were canceled Monday. The weather also prompted at least a day-long delay in the trial of the ex-Marine charged in the shooting death of former Navy SEAL Chris Kyle, whose memoir American Sniper was the basis for the Oscar-nominated movie. The Weather Service canceled a winter storm warning for North Texas, but said the moisture already on roads was expected to refreeze by early Tuesday, complicating the morning commute for a second day. A freezing rain advisory was also in effect for the southeast Texas piney woods through Tuesday morning, and winter weather authorities have been advisories have been posted for central Texas and parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Wind chills are forecast to dive below zero in northern parts of the U.S. starting this afternoon. In Michigan, actual temperatures dipped to 10 below zero in Saginaw, Bay City, and Midland, breaking the area's record of -2. Meanwhile, the Great Lakes they're freezing over. Lake Erie is nearly totally frozen, and Lake Huron and Superior are nearly 80% frozen, the New York Daily News reports. And Boston's transit agency is slowly returning to normal after a series of crippling snowstorms and low temperatures. Most subway and trolley branches have service restored Sunday just in time for the Monday morning commute, and buses were running on a regular weekday schedule. And Jay, what do we got in breaking news?
Thank you very much, Corey. All right, we got a car chase going on, so let's go ahead.
Oh, boy!
It's another one, ladies and gentlemen, so let's go ahead and join KBC TV Los Angeles, as it is rainy roads here in Southern California, and this has a threat with public safety. Let's go ahead and join KBC TV as they do their reporting on this
Grabs
story.
popcorn.
Okay, it looks like we just lost our feed at this particular point, but we'll keep an eye on... Bummer. I hate when that happens. But
yeah, I know.
We'll keep an eye on that feed, for sure, and if we have a conclusion on that car chase, we, of course, will bring it right to you here on the Evan-Miller Report. Meantime, we'll go send it back over to Corey, and he has the business news.
I most certainly do. The Dow is down 23 points at 18,116. The Nasdaq up 5 points at 49.60, and the S&P 500 down almost a point at 2109. In short, it's Monday.
Do we still have Corey Evan?
Writing a list of reform proposals from Athens, which was a part of the pact struck late Friday to extend Greece's bailout for 4 months. The proposals are expected to be reviewed by the ECB, the EU Commission, and the IMF. The list from Athens is expected to cover general reforms on tax and public admin without specific fiscal targets, RBC Capital Markets noted Monday. Eurozone finance ministers were expected to discuss Greece's list of proposed reforms on Tuesday. But the euro against the dollar fell to $1.13 from around about $1.13.5 late Friday in New York. Trading was closed in Greece for the Ash Monday holiday. Greece's ATHEX composite slipped 0.3% on Friday ahead of the deal announcement. After reaching a tentative contract agreement that covers the West Coast's 29 seaports, dock workers are clearing an immense backlog of cargo that accumulated as their negotiations with employers stalled. Overall, ports handle annually. With the contract impasse resolved, here are a few questions about what got here, how they got there, and what comes next. Just how bad's the cargo backlog? Hardly ever been worse bad. The 24 container ships anchored Monday outside of the ports of LA and Long Beach hold so much cargo that if you stacked all their containers, they would rise more than 300 miles. How did it get so messed up? Last fall, members of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union began slowing their work. Companies that operate marine terminals responded by locking out many workers. Major ports never closed fully, but the back and forth caused the shipping jam. And does the tentative agreement restore labor peace to the West Coast docks? Under the contract deal reached Friday, leaders of the union and Pacific Maritime Association of companies that own, load, and unload ocean-going ships agreed to move cargo as fast as possible. And that started happening over the weekend with the exception of the Port of Oakland, where a labor management dispute related to work breaks escalated and the port shut down Sunday. Just another mess at the ports. But Target Corporation, whatever they've got from all of that mess at the ports, whatever they're selling from that, you can now get it shipped for free by only having to buy $25 worth of merchandise on Target.com instead of $50, as the company focuses more on its online
Okay, looks like we lost Corey Evan there. He was with the business news. We do now have our feed up with KBC TV in Los Angeles, and we're in the middle of a car chase. One person has been hit by this suspect. Speeds are going to 135 miles an hour. So let's join for the very latest with KBC TV over in Los Angeles.
Including hitting a pedestrian. This person has just kept on going. We're sorry about the breakup in the picture there. As we continue to watch live pictures from Air 7 HD now, the helicopter going around a hill as we try to get a better picture of this Ford F-150. The driver initially wanted for reckless driving in the San Fernando Valley, in the Northridge area on pedestrian streets, would not pull over for the LAPD for whatever reason, and that's where the pursuit began on these surface streets. At one point, a pedestrian was hit. That person's condition is unknown, and now we're going to see what happens as we get closer to the freeway, still on surface streets, and now we see patrol cars, patrol SUV behind this Ford F-150 as it continues now on a frontage road along the, I think that's the 118, isn't it?
I believe so. Let's get, I believe on the phone with us now we have Bruce Thomas. Are you there? Oh, we don't have it yet. Oh, you are there. Okay. You are a retired LA County Sheriff Sergeant.
That's correct.
For
27 years.
I guess you've done a few of these. What do you make of the fact that they at least were backing off, but it didn't seem to be slowing them down? What do you do in a case like that?
Well, one of the most important things is they're evaluating the pursuit minute by minute. There's a supervisor, there's a watch commander, they're in constant contact with the ground units. And one of the most important things is not only the apprehending the suspect, but the most paramount issue is the safety of the public, safety of the officers, safety of the innocent person who may get caught up in this.
Okay, let's just go to the left here. We're losing, we lost sight of it for a quick second. There, we're going to see if we can reestablish our connection with the suspect vehicle. There it is. Okay, continue then. They're reevaluating as they go. I would think the northbound on Sierra Highway, as you know, any casual observer would be able to tell this is extremely dangerous. And so as they reevaluate it and figure out what to do, they can't let him, obviously they can't let him go. They're tracking him from the air, but he's still speeding as fast as he can. You can't really do the pit maneuver either at this point because the speeds are so high, right?
Right, that's correct. And it looks like he's now getting back on the 5, possibly from the old road or somewhere down over by Sierra Highway. His speed, you can see, is greatly increasing. He wants to get away, and I don't know what the reason for the pursuit was, but you know, the LAPD or CHP, who probably will take this over, will back off. That's what the helicopter is for. That's what the radio is for, and you cannot outrun the helicopter or the radio.
And
go ahead.
Sorry, we are now northbound 5 in the Newhall Pass as we continue to follow this from Air 7 HD. So Bruce Thomas is with us. He's a retired LA County Sheriff Sergeant watching this pursuit with us. And Bruce, tell us about what are the officers dealing with on the road right now? Tell us about what it's like to be involved in a pursuit like this, or any pursuit.
Well, yeah, I just learned it's a felony hit-and-run suspect, so obviously there's injuries and property damage. He's driving on the shoulder road at a high rate of speed. You got rush hour traffic. He wants to get away for whatever reason. And unfortunately, what he's doing is so dangerous that as a supervisor, you're like, units, you got to back off, let the helicopter track. Hopefully he slows his speed. Hopefully he feels that he can get away. And then we'll try to catch him down the road a little bit.
Wow, it's got to be hard to do. I'd imagine your adrenaline is involved here, in addition to whatever training that you've got that kicks in. You really want to catch this guy as an officer, as a law enforcement officer, because of the danger.
All right, and you've been listening to KABC TV in Los Angeles' coverage of this car chase. We're going to keep an up-to-date on this pursuit going on. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Evan-Miller Report. I'm Jason Miller, along with Corey Evan this evening, and we've been following this because this is a felony hit-and-run suspect. This guy's been going 135-plus miles an hour. One person has already been hit by this guy, and this guy is jumping on and off freeways. Last time they were reported, his location was close on northbound Interstate 5 in the Los Angeles area, and that's Corey Evan. Very dangerous situation as he's now
extremely, because he forgets that in this kind of weather, because it's very wet out here, you can see the spray out there. Your tires tend to lose contact with the ground in about an eighth of an inch of water.
Just went into the carpool lane, the emergency carpool lane. Oh my goodness!
Oh no! Yeah, he's gonna eat it at one point or another, or he'll run out of gas.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we went to that LA car chase because we lost you there for a minute there, and you were in the middle of the business there, just finishing off the Port of Long Beach story. So what else do you have in business to finish off in business?
Yeah, I was just saying that the only port
car chase here in our newsroom.
Yeah, I was just saying that the ports are open up except for Oakland, where things didn't exactly go to plan and the port shut down. And now, Jay, if you need to buy anything online, you should go to Target.com because they're having their requirements for free shipping. Instead of $50 gets you free shipping, $25.
Oh, sounds like a pretty good deal right there. All right.
Yes, and you know this guy, he buys stuff online, so this is a real boon for him.
I am guilty of being a very big online shopper. I know guilty there to have my Amazon Prime.
You're just helping the economy move along. That's all you're doing.
Absolutely. All right, folks, let's get on some other news that we're following today. Briefly, a U.S. Marine who disappeared from his base in Iraq in 2004 and later fled to Lebanon was found guilty on Monday of twice deserting the military and sentenced to 2 years in prison. Corporal Westhoff Hussein, 35, was convicted of deserting in Iraq to avoid hazardous duty and deserting it once again in 2005 with the intent to stay away for good, according to a statement from Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, where his court-martial was held. After Hussein vanished from his base in Fallujah, Iraq in June 2004, the Arabic language interpreter turned up a month later in Lebanon, claiming to have been kidnapped by militants, according to the military. But military investigators accused the Lebanese-born Marine of taking unauthorized leave from his unit and then stealing a service gun. The head of the U.S. National Security Agency declined comment today on reports that the U.S. implants spyware for surveillance purposes, saying we fully comply with the law. Navy Admiral Michael Rogers was responding to reports that the NSA had embedded spyware on computer hard drives on a vast scale, and that it and its British counterpart had hacked into the world's biggest manufacturer of cell phone SIM cards. He spoke at a forum sponsored by the New America think tank. And the U.S. Justice Department on Monday argued today that halting President Obama's executive actions on immigration from taking effect threatens national security in a request for an emergency stay to put a hold on a Texas judge's decision. Corey Evan, of course, covered this earlier today. President Obama is expected to issue a third and most significant veto of his presidency tomorrow, embracing new raw executive power in the twilight of his administration, at least according to some. This is even better than the veto pen, said Obama, gripping a silvery hockey stick gifted to him in the midst of another fight with Republicans. Since last November, Obama's threatened to veto more than a dozen Republican-backed bills from tougher sanctions. On Tuesday, he's likely to make good on another veto promise, rejecting a bill pushing for the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. And finally, Aaron Chinook, a rising Republican star, is facing an ethics inquiry which has accusing him of spending taxpayer and campaign funds on flights aboard private planes owned by some of his key donors, according to the AP. There has also been other expensive travel and entertainment charges, including for a massage company and music concerts. The expenses highlight the relationships that lawmakers sometimes have with donors who fund their political ambitions, and an unwelcome message for a congressman billed as a fresh face for the GOP. The AP identified at least 12 flights worth more than $40,000 on donors' planes since mid-2011. All right, and we'll go ahead. Let's see what we got going on. We still have that suspect wanted for reckless driving. He is now over in Santa Clarita right now.
Oh, no. He's right next to Six Flags. That's not good.
Yeah, so we're still keeping an eye on that car chase. He's going in and out of that carpool lane. Just went right back into that emergency lane right next to the carpool lane right there on the northbound 5. I know that very well, as we used to take that route quite frequently when we broadcast the Evan-Miller Report out of Los Angeles. So, very tough situation right now for law enforcement, considering the wet conditions with that rain that we get here in Southern California. We don't get it often, but when we do, and there's a car chase of this magnitude, it can get very dangerous indeed. So, all right, we're going to keep following that, and right now, it's time for today's Lawsuits Across America.
And now it's time for Lawsuits Across America. The cases are real. All rise for the Honorable Corey Evans.
Thank you. As always, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and come to order. Lawsuits Across America for this Monday are now in session, and don't forget to shake out your umbrellas. What started as an arcane debate about hardware spec analyzers has now become a legal headache for NVIDIA. The graphics card maker is facing a class action in the Northern District of California over allegations that it falsely advertised the total hardware power in the GTX 970 graphics card released last year. In marketing materials and reviews provided when the GTX launched in September, NVIDIA advertised a card that had 4 gigs of high-speed GDD RAM. Earlier this year, though, many users online reported performance issues when trying to utilize the entirety of that RAM, including stuttering and crashing on games and video editing. Subsequent analysis found that the GTX 970 actually splits its RAM into 2 segments, a high-priority segment that's indeed high speed, and a lower-priority segment with a data bandwidth that's roughly 80% slower. Some other advertised specs for the card also don't match the shipping reality. It only has 56 render output units, down from an advertised 64. In short, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know about technicals on computers, they promise too much and don't deliver enough. In any case, as game requirements continue to increase in coming years, that last bit of slow RAM will likely rate partitioning and lower than advertised specs, but argued they have minimal impact on actual game performance. Separate from the actual impact on performance, though, is the fact that NVIDIA shared some specs that were simply incorrect with reviewers and the public via its website. In short, NVIDIA, you got some explaining to do. And from NVIDIA to Lenovo, they admitted to preloading the Superfish adware on some consumer PCs, and unhappy customers are now dragging the company to court. To court on the matter. Ooh, Jay, you got something about them using a pit maneuver?
Yes, Corey Evan. Looks like they may be issuing a pit maneuver because looks like the police are closing in on him. So let's join KBC TV Los Angeles, see what's going on.
Yeah, I'll get back to you on the lawsuits later.
Which would be to his benefit, because up ahead, as I said, up in the Acton area, it's going to get very heavily congested. Trying to get around all that heavy traffic up ahead, that's going to be an extreme chore for that driver. Now, if you're new to the pursuit, this began a short time ago in the San Fernando Valley with LAPD Topanga Division officers telling us they were trying to pull over a reckless driver. Then the chase was on. This guy wanted nothing to do with slowing down, let alone come to a stop. We have heard from LAPD officers that during the course of the chase in the San Fernando Valley in the Northridge area, it'll be near in Northridge at Corbin, I believe, is where that hit-and-run crash happened, where a pedestrian was struck by that suspect. So this is now not only a reckless driver, but also wanted for felony hit and run. We're trying to find out the condition of that pedestrian right now out of the carpool lane across all the right lanes, and he may be anticipating all that heavy traffic up ahead, in which case he may try to exit up ahead somewhere, perhaps Red Rover Mine, or maybe continue all the way up into the Antelope Valley, up toward Palmdale and Lancaster. This is the bulk of the congestion now coming up into Acton. If he does get beyond that, at the top of the hill on the downhill slide, as he continues up toward Palmdale and Lancaster, down on the downhill side and in the flats, it's going to be very, by and large, lightly traveled this time of the afternoon. For now, though, speeds appear to be in excess of 100 miles per hour. We're still indicating 115 miles per hour in Air 7 HD. We're right on top of this guy, side by side. The California Highway Patrol, they're behind that guy. Police helicopters on top of the suspect as well, so there's really nowhere to go. That appears to be a newer model F-150, a very well-fortified F-150. These are very powerful rigs. They come with V8 engines and a lot of power, a lot of torque off the line. Really? And the top end is something I'm even surprised by, Mark, that we were saying earlier, speeds estimated up to 135 miles per hour. When you go that fast, you start getting tunnel vision. You can't see things off to your left or right, and it's extremely dangerous. Coming to a stop right now, just a dead stop in the middle of the freeway. This may be a cat and mouse game. We've seen it before. Comes to a stop, takes off again. You see the California Highway Patrol right on that guy. At one point, they took the chase over from LAPD officers, and they're going to stay on top of this guy as he continues up into Acton now, as he continues toward Palmdale and Lancaster, and hopefully at one point, this guy either simply pulls over and calls it a day, or maybe runs out of gas. It's a big gas tank and a powerful engine, but the gas mileage on a big truck like that with those kind of speeds, your duration is going to be greatly limited, Mark and Michelle.
And, Bill, was that spotlight coming from the LAPD helicopter that we saw just a second ago that was shining down on the pickup?
Yeah, that's either an LAPD helicopter or...
All right, and you've been listening to KBC TV's coverage of this car chase. Pursuits now on Highway 14, heading up to Palmdale. This guy going in excess of 115 miles per hour. And Corey, Evan, we've lived in Southern California all our lives, and we know these car chases, especially after a rain, it's not pretty.
Yeah, they may happen a lot, but each one of them is individually more dangerous than the next.
Absolutely. We'll keep an eye on this. Meanwhile, we'll send it back over to Corey, and he'll finish tonight lawsuits across America.
As I was saying, a proposed class action suit was filed last week against Lenovo and Superfish, which charges both companies with fraudulent business practices and of making Lenovo PCs vulnerable to malware and malicious attacks by preloading the adware. PCs, the laptops affected by non-ThinkPad models such as G Series, U Series, Y Series, Z Series, and every letter in between. Lenovo has since issued fixes to remove Superfish applications and certificates from PCs. Microsoft's Windows Defender and McAfee's security applications also removed Superfish since Friday. And, of course, Lenovo has admitted to messing up. How badly will they lose in court? We'll find out as this story develops. And on that note, I will declare today's lawsuits across America a case dismissed because I want to learn more about this car chase.
All right, thank you very much, Corey. All right, folks, for the rest of the report, we are going to go ahead, send it back over to KBC TV Los Angeles. We're going to follow the rest of this car chase until the top of the hour, where we'll send it over to the Exceptional Conservative Show. So I'll be back to close out the show a couple moments before the top of the hour. Now to KBC TV Los Angeles and this car chase here in Los Angeles on Highway 14 heading to Palmdale.
Miles per hour. Now we're indicating closer to 80 miles per hour. As we get closer and closer, we're backing up just a bit. We have finally caught up to this guy, but this was a real chore coming up from the Newhall Pass. Again, just a reminder, this is a chase that began in the San Fernando Valley. LAPD Topanga Division officers, pretty basic, said they tried to pull over a reckless driver, didn't want to stop. The chase was on. Somewhere in Northridge at Corbin, apparently he hit a pedestrian. That's the report, and we haven't gotten the update on the condition of the pedestrian. Just narrowly missed that car, and then during the course of the pursuit, he may have hit some additional vehicles. So a reckless driver, a felony hit and run driver, speeds triple digits now, in excess of 100 miles per hour, and gradually speeds are improving now as we continue through Acton. Another 8, maybe 10 more minutes, he will be in the Antelope Valley and Palmdale proper, Palmdale and then Lancaster. Beyond that, if you're unfamiliar with the high desert, he's got a number of options. If he continues northbound on the 14, could take him all the way up into the Mojave area. And right now we continue northbound on the 14, 100 miles per hour coming up on the Crown Valley exit, not to be confused with the Crown Valley Parkway off-ramp in Mission Viejo off Interstate 5. This is the Crown Valley off-ramp in Acton as we continue out of the city of Santa Clarita and up toward Palmdale and Lancaster. As you can see, Mark and Michelle continuing here in the center divider.
And Bill, how are we doing with tracking mode? Are we out of tracking mode or back in now? Where's that CHP unit?
Back and forth, back and forth. Open up the shop for you just a bit as he continues. North 14, Crown Valley. There's that CHP cruiser right on top of him. There's a second, most likely a third right behind him. So they were in tracking mode. They've come back into full pursuit mode. CHP officers on the ground. They're standing by on both sides of the freeway in case this guy exits the freeway. They'll have him surrounded, and we have the police helicopters overhead. So in the event, is very rare, but in the event he did get away from California Highway Patrol officers, or if CHP officers called it off too dangerous, the police helicopter would stay overhead and then find his track his every move. Coming up now on Crown Valley, that police helicopter is very low level. He's got the spotlight on. He's watching to see if that guy gets off the freeway and heads up into the neighborhood. Just a reminder, one of the reasons we tell you when there's a pursuit coming into your neighborhood, you may hear us talking about it, heading into your community, your town, your city. Always stay indoors. Keep the doors and windows locked. As you mentioned, Mark, a while ago, sometimes these things turn into foot chases. The suspect gets out of their rig. They make a run for it into the neighborhood, and sometimes they're just looking for an open door, an open window, a breach somewhere, and that puts you and your family at great risk. So if you live in the Acton area, anywhere in Palmdale or Lancaster where you think it's going next, stay indoors when it comes through your neighborhood. Keep yourself and your family very safe. There's one more twist now. As he comes up the 14 northbound, coming around the bend near Lake Palmdale, he'll also come up on Highway 138. Some areas that's referred to as Pear Blossom Highway. 100 miles per hour now at Santiago Canyon, north on the 14. He may opt to pick up Highway 138. That is a desert road which connects the Antelope Valley Freeway, the 14, with Highway 15 out in the Victor Valley area. That is a treacherous highway, so hopefully he sticks with the 14. I've seen these pursuits on surface streets, on narrow highways, and as far as I'm concerned, when they're on the freeway, they have a bit of a wider berth, especially at these incredible speeds. I think it's just a bit safer. When you get into surface streets, you have that risk of pedestrians, afternoon traffic, and everybody is at great risk for very serious bodily harm and even death. I've seen these things end up in very tragic ways. Now, we're coming up on the Soledad Canyon exit northbound on the 14. There are actually 2 or maybe 3 Soledad off-ramps. There's the lower Soledad and this one, the upper Soledad, which sits just below Palmdale. So if you live in the Palmdale or
all right, and you've been listening to KBC TV's coverage of a car chase now going into Acton, California, over in Los Angeles. Reason we're bringing you this is because of the rainy conditions we've had in Southern California today, public safety issue. We've been bringing you that coverage here on the Evan-Miller Report today. And Corey, This obviously very big car chase here, and obviously car chases are known in Los Angeles. Happens almost on a weekly, if not on a bi-weekly basis. We have a car chase going on. So, of course, we'll keep you updated on this throughout the night on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan-Miller Report. In the meantime, for Corey Evan, I'm Jason Miller saying so long from Southern California. Coming up next is The Exceptional Conservative Show with Ken McClinton. For Corey Evan, I'm Jason Miller once again saying so long, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.